me tell you something. I can't ski.
Well, what will it do for me?
It will do anything you tell me to tell it to do.
Baby, it's Daddy. Getting down to business.
When Superman I hit theaters in 1983, it marked a striking shift in tone and direction for the beloved superhero franchise that began with Richard Donner's original 1978 classic and continued with the powerful emotional story of Superman I. The third film took audiences into a more comedic and experimental version of the Superman saga, one that leaned into lighter humor, inventive technology, and new characters while still carrying the heart of the hero who stood for truth and justice. It was a bold, creative choice that separated it from the darker tones of its predecessors and offered a new kind of Superman story for the early 1980s audience. Christopher Reeve returned once again as the Man of Steel, bringing his signature mix of warmth, idealism, and inner strength to the role that had made him a cinematic icon. This time, his journey would test not only his physical might, but also his moral resolve, as the forces he faced weren't just cosmic villains or alien threats, but the darker impulses within humanity and within himself. Set against a backdrop of advancing technology and corporate greed, the story introduced a new antagonist in the form of Ross Webster, a wealthy and ruthless industrialist who uses his immense resources and cunning mind to manipulate both people and machines to achieve his goals. Richard Pryor joined the cast as Gus Gorman, a down-on-his-luck computer programmer who discovers his unique skill for hacking and coding, unwittingly becoming a pawn in Webster's grand plan to control the economy and even the weather. Pryor's character brought a new comedic energy to the film, blending slapstick humor with moments of surprising depth as his character evolved from a misguided accomplice into a man grappling with the consequences of his actions. Through Gus, the film explored the growing influence of computers and the tension between human morality and technological power, an idea that felt forward-thinking for its time. The film also took Superman on a personal journey that diverged from his previous battles with world-ending villains. It delved deeper into the duality of Clark Kent and Superman, blurring the lines between good and evil in one of the film's most memorable sequences. After being exposed to a form of synthetic kryptonite, Superman experiences a moral breakdown, becoming darker, more selfish, and even cruel. This transformation culminates in an unforgettable scene where Superman literally battles his own inner self Clark Kent versus Superman in a scrapyard duel that symbolizes his internal struggle between corruption and redemption. It was a daring narrative choice that gave Christopher Reeve one of his most challenging performances, allowing him to portray both the hero's virtue and his potential for human weakness. While the humor and tone of Superman, I set it apart, it also retained the emotional threads that grounded the earlier films. The return of Lana Lang, played by Annette O'Toole, introduced a new romantic subplot that contrasted sharply with Clark's previous relationship with Lois Lane. Lana's character represented warmth, simplicity, and genuine affection, reminding Clark of his roots in Smallville and the kind of grounded, human connection he had lost amid his double life as a global savior. Their dynamic brought out a more human side of Clark, offering moments of sweetness and nostalgia that balanced the movie's more chaotic elements. The film's depiction of Smallville also deepened the mythology of Superman's world, portraying the heartland values and community that shaped him into the man he became. One of the defining features of Superman was its exploration of the dangers of corporate manipulation and technological advancement. Ross Webster's plan to use a supercomputer to dominate global industries and even threaten Superman himself felt like a commentary on the growing power of technology in the early 1980s. The film's climax featured a massive confrontation between Superman and Webster's computer creation, a sequence that mixed spectacle, suspense, and special effects that were ambitious for their time. The battle introduced one of the most haunting moments in the film, the transformation of Webster's sister, Vera, into a terrifying cyborg after being assimilated by the machine. This scene, dark and surreal, stood out in contrast to the film's comedic tone, giving it a surprising sense of menace that hinted at the dangers of technology turning against humanity. Behind the camera, the film was directed by Richard Lester, who had previously co-directed much of Superman, III. His vision emphasized physical comedy, quick pacing, and a lighter tone compared to the mythic gravitas of the first film. Lester's approach was divisive among fans and critics. Some appreciated the humor and inventive direction, while others missed the emotional depth and epic grandeur of the earlier installments. However, there was no denying the film's ambition to expand Superman's cinematic identity beyond pure heroism, exploring what happens when his power, morality, and purpose are put to the test in unconventional ways. Visually, Superman, I continued the legacy of impressive special effects that the franchise was known for. The flying sequences were smoother and more dynamic than ever, showcasing advancements in wire work and compositing that helped bring Superman's world to life. The film's depiction of technology, supercomputers, satellites, and complex weather control systems captured the imagination of an era fascinated by the rise of computing. Combined with the colorful design, fast-paced action, and memorable comedic moments, it created a world that felt both futuristic and playful, a distinct step away from the more mythic tone of its predecessors. Christopher Reeve's performance remained the heart of the movie. Even amid the comedy and chaos, he anchored the story with sincerity and emotional truth. His portrayal of an internally conflicted Superman fighting against his own darker nature remains one of the most compelling aspects of the film. Reeve brought intensity and subtlety to scenes that required him to embody both moral corruption and redemption, showing the layers beneath the Man of Steel's perfect exterior. His chemistry with Annette O'Toole also added warmth and authenticity, giving audiences a glimpse of a more human Superman who longed for normalcy and genuine connection. Despite its lighter tone, Superman I was not without emotional moments. The scrapyard battle between Clark and his darker self stood out as a metaphor for the struggle every person faces when confronted by their inner flaws. The final moments of Superman's redemption, emerging from the conflict with renewed clarity and purpose, brought the story full circle, reaffirming the values that define the hero. The film closed with a sense of humor and hope, echoing the optimism that had always been at the core of the Superman legacy. Upon release, Superman, I divided audiences and critics. Some praised its originality, daring humor, and the inclusion of Richard Pryor, whose comedic timing brought a new energy to the superhero genre. Others felt the shift toward comedy diluted the emotional weight of the franchise. Yet, over the years, the film developed a kind of nostalgic charm. Its mix of campy humor, imaginative storytelling, and memorable character moments made it a unique entry in the Superman series. Many fans came to appreciate it as a product of its time, a colorful, eccentric, and entertaining experiment that reflected the early 1980s fascination with both comedy and technology. In hindsight, Superman I also represented a turning point for superhero cinema. It demonstrated how flexible the genre could be, capable of embracing humor and self-awareness while still delivering moments of genuine drama and heroism. The film's willingness to blend tones, switching from slapstick comedy to psychological conflict to sci-fi spectacle, made it unpredictable and distinct. While it may not have reached the critical or emotional heights of the first two films, it showcased the versatility of Superman as a character who could exist across multiple tones and themes. The legacy of Superman I lives on in how it dared to take risks within a beloved franchise. It reimagined the Man of Steel in a setting filled with humor, technology, and self-doubt, showing that even the mightiest hero could stumble and rise again. For fans of the era, it captured the feel of a time when superhero films were still experimenting with identity and style, long before the genre became defined by cinematic universes and interconnected narratives. Christopher Reeve's Superman, even in this lighter and sometimes chaotic chapter, remained the beating heart of the story, an icon of hope, humanity, and perseverance. Looking back, the film stands as a curious but fascinating entry in Superman's cinematic journey. It balanced the charm of small-town nostalgia with the excitement of high-tech adventure, combining heartfelt character moments with comedic set pieces. While its tonal shifts and experimental storytelling divided opinion, there's a lasting sense of sincerity beneath its humor. Superman, I may not have soared as high as its predecessors, but it remains a film that dared to explore new skies, an eccentric, bold, and unmistakably unique chapter in the legacy of the Man of Steel.